So this is a really cool panel, and even though the people up here are not who are in the program, well, I think 2 out of 4, so we're doing okay. We're 50-50. It's really exciting, though, that Todd and Hanieh have, I'm sorry, Theo, I need coffee, have joined us, and also very excited that Hanieh has agreed to join our board, so welcome to AREI. Yes, thank you for your service. And also Jim Farrell, who's a board member as well. So I think I just want to jump in here. This is about investment and investment in clean energy. And maybe we can just start with you. Tell us a little bit about your previous life over at Morgan Stanley, and what were some of the motivations for you to move into the sectors that you're in now, and then maybe we can just really just move right down the line here, and everybody can meet the panelists this way.
Sure. Hello everyone, my name is Hanieh, Sadat. Thank you for having me here and putting together such an amazing event, 14th annual summit that you're having. My background, I've been managing money with a large team at Morgan Stanley, private wealth of Morgan Stanley, and we've been managing money for institutions and endowments and many family offices. And because of my involvement with many organizations such as World Economic Forum, Milken Institute, and Nexus Global Youth, which we have a few members here and glad to see them here, I realized that we are facing a lot of challenges in the world, aka climate change, and we're not realizing it. However, we are managing this massive money, and we think that we are the foundation to be able to address these issues. So I started, after 12 years of wealth management, I started looking to our programs as far as impact investing funds or any type of impact investing vehicles that we had at Morgan Stanley, and I came across pretty much nothing because most of them been generating very little return annually, and some of them were actually losing money. So I decided to bring in on board VCs or private equities that they've been doing better. They've been generating double-digit return in the past, so we could bring it on under our platform so our clients could start buying them and putting money into these funds and VCs. But then I realized a lot of regulations that we had to go through. It takes 6 months to 8 months to be able to bring these VCs or PEs under our platform. So I found frustrations after 12 years, and I decided to resign and decided to create my own fund, which was creating a fund of fun. So I decided to bring on board those VCs or private equities that they're mainly investing in impact investing, such as renewable energy technologies, anything that is mainly addressing impact investing, but they are directly making an impact to the environment. And they also have a great track record. They've been generating double-digit returns in the past 15 to 10 years, and bring it under, create a fund of fund platform. But then I realized that it takes me about 5 years for me to create a fund with our partners for $1 billion or $2 billion fund, which is not going to still address these massive problems that we're facing, and it's going really fast. So I came across, I said to myself, there must be a solution to this, and thank God I came across Theo, and I met Theo, that he created a very interesting platform. So I joined forces with Social Eco, his company, and I'm very happy that he was able to join us here from London to present how we could collaboratively address these challenges that we are facing today. So please.
Great. And so Theo, thank you for joining us the last minute, and thank you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, and so maybe you could start with your experience with the UN. I know you won an award for the Millennium Development Goals, and now you're involved with the Sustainable Development Goals, and you're relating that to the blockchain, I believe, and cryptocurrencies. Is that right?
Yes, the SDGs provide us with a fantastic framework for delivering much-needed solutions to address these SDGs, especially the monetary ones. The UN has come up with a figure of $2.5 trillion that's needed annually to finance achievements of these SDGs. And the current model for financing social and green projects derives from the Marshall Plan at the end of World War II. That was used to finance the reconstruction of Germany. And that's a percentage of GDP. And I've got some figures here, in fact. Can I load something? Thanks. So at the moment, trying to go back. OK. So these are the SDGs. There's 17 of them, as you'll probably know, I'm sure. And the focus here is renewable energy, climate change, etc. But they're all interconnected. So we're all on the same planet. And importantly, we're all captains of this ship. So it's an issue of leadership. How can we decentralize leadership and provide everyone with tools that empowers people to actually contribute to achieving these SDGs? So the current model of financing derives from an end-of-pipe percentage of GDP, which clearly doesn't work. At a global level, it's approximately 0.5% of GDP. European or national level, about 1.5%, and at a national and regional level, about 2.5%. This equates to about $300 to $500 billion every year spent on social and green projects, whereas the UN has come up with a figure of 2.5 trillion that's needed to fund the SDGs. So there's a shortfall of approximately $2.1 trillion. And we've got a problem, obviously, because we need to find these $2.1 trillion from somewhere. So with my background with the MDG game 6 years ago, and just understanding why the MDGs failed, there was a lack of awareness of the MDGs, and there was a lack of funding for the MDGs. And also importantly, there was a lack of inclusion. Various parties didn't include society, business, and the academia in terms of coming up with solutions for the MDGs. Thankfully, they've approached the SDGs in a different way now. So we've come up with the idea of an SDG Coin. Yeah, speaks for itself, in fact. This can achieve the gap of $2.1 trillion if it is universally inclusive of the human population. And for that to work, it needs to include both those who have a smartphone and those who don't. So what's not on this flag is the $1. What is missing from this slide is the $1 smartphone that we've developed, which engages the 4 billion base of pyramid. What is here is how we can decentralize currency ownership. So I very much believe in the sovereign individual. There's a great quote by Hegel. It goes something like, the history of the world is none other than the progress of the consciousness of freedom. So anything that we do to contribute to the consciousness of freedom, especially using technology, is contributing to the benefits of humanity. So if we can decentralize currency creation to anybody and everybody, individually, organizations, progressives especially, then we can bring a new energy, a new dynamic into the monetary economy. So think of this as a WordPress for currency. Before WordPress and before the ability for us to create our own content, we had to go to AOL, for example. AOL was the creator of content. That was decentralized. And then anyone could create the website, anyone could build their own website. We could personalize it. That's part of this empowerment of humanity. And here we have the WordPress of currency. Anyone can create a currency. What's important here is that SDG Coin becomes the reserve of all coins. And that provides liquidity. So any coin can be exchanged or converted to any other coin, no matter what jurisdiction or environment you find yourself in. Importantly also, early coins like Bitcoin and others have sought to displace the banking system. That's not going to go anywhere, all right? What we can do is try to transform it and show it that unless it transforms, it's going to go the way of the caterpillar when the butterfly evolves, right? So we need to provide the tools and the persuasion for establishment to transform themselves. And we give the tools to the progressives to be empowered. And we provide a solution that's better than the current market leaders. With Bitcoin, you can do 3 transactions per second. That is not going to displace Visa, MasterCard, who are at 2,000 transactions per second. So Bitcoin is categorically not a threat to the banking system. Ethereum, 15 transactions per second. With the way we've programmed our platform, we can do 1 million transactions per second. By decentralizing co-ownership of this coin to humanity, we're empowering ordinary citizens to themselves engage the IoT, which we know is going to be a massive economy as well. How do we empower energy companies to defest from fossil fuel investments into a more progressive and sustainable energy future? Well, we have an SDG ICO as a service. There are many companies around the world, and here especially, who have great products and services who want to raise funding, be it for energy or something else. This is an example of a great idea. So they are doing coffee direct from Vietnam. They're just next door, where we had lunch. And in terms of divesting from one environment to another, by selling these directly, they're actually doing 300% more revenues by selling directly through philanthropy and direct to end user. So if you're divesting, look for somewhere that's highly profitable to put your money in. So what we can do is we can enable these guys to create their own currency, their own coin. And through your own coin, you can include their coin in your basket of coins, like your mutual funds. And you can support them through the smart contracts of the cryptocurrency world without parting with funds yourself. So the smart contract means that when they increase in value, your coin increases in value as well. So this is the kind of solutions that we're bringing to not only fund the SDGs, but empower progressives in all sections of the SDGs, including the energy sector, of course, to come up with solutions to achieve their objectives.
Wow, that's pretty amazing, and thanks for explaining a very, very complicated conversation in terms of cryptocurrency and the various coins. And I'm going to make the analogy that when we have centralized energy production and we want to go to a distributed model, when we want to stop, digging coal, shipping it thousands of miles to be burned, to be shipped thousands of miles back over high tension lines with, loss, damage to the environment every step of the way, and then rather, have a distributed model where the energy is produced locally and then consumed locally and it's much more benign as an end use. So perhaps that's a nice analogy for, AREDAY, an American renewable energy as well. So I want to turn to James on the end there. And Jim, maybe you could tell us a little bit about some of the strategies that you're looking at in California. I know that you're on the leading and the sometimes bleeding edge of this transition that we're in. And thank you for your leadership there. So yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So Jim Farrell, and I've sat through the whole morning along with many of you and been struck by a few things. The focus on funding all of these technologies and this transition that needs to happen brings to light, for instance, just the comment now that it will take literally a couple of $1 trillion per year of capital formation to roll out the kinds of changes in solar and a bunch of the other technologies that people are talking about, solar and wind in particular, in the case of energy. That's a lot of money, I believe, and I think we all do. So I'm setting up why it is I'm doing what I'm doing. So take note of that issue. In addition, we've heard a lot about solar and wind and the tremendous growth due to the greatly decreasing costs. However, I still believe that there are other energy sources that we're going to need to help solve the problems that we are faced with. We also have heard people talk about whether it would be 2030 or maybe 2050 where we would finally hit peak oil. Well, peak oil that's, first of all, that's too far from now. We've also heard, I think it was Laughlin Arts in particular, trying to give us all an extra boost of focus on the fact that we have a really big problem already. We can't wait that long. But if peak oil is going to be achieved at that point, it's still going up until then. We have to get oil all the way back down, which is going to take many years after that, and that's just simply too long. So I'm a huge fan of wind and solar and all the things that we've all been talking about today. But at the same time, I've chosen to focus, and again, this panel is about investment. So investment, my efforts are on the innovation end of things. So a lot of this talk today has been about deployment, how we're going to deploy all this thing and raise the capital and make all this happen with regulations and all. But there's another part of the story that is where I've chosen, and some people I work with have chosen to focus, which is on the innovation end. Are there any other answers that could be come up with on the innovation side to help make this transition more doable and quicker? And so that's very much where I focus, basically in terms of seed capital or venture funds, a bit of family office money, focused on new energy breakthroughs. Again, I'm a big believer in wind and solar, but I'm hoping, and a few of us are hoping, that we can find something else that can also be a really big piece of the answer as well. Maybe on the similar in scale to wind and solar as we're all envisioning them in a few years. So that's what I focus on. It would take a long time to describe some of the things I do, but that's what I do.
Great, thanks. So in terms of investment strategies, Hanieh, what are you looking at right now? Are you solely focused on this new emerging market here, I guess we could call it, in terms of the cryptocurrencies, or are you also looking at some more traditional things like wind, solar, energy efficiency?
Currently, under my own company, ImpactX, before I actually met Theo, I created this model that because we have access to the top renewable energy technologies, mainly my passion is waste recycling technologies and tire recycling technology, and I think that we have a massive problem with wastelands, and especially most parts of Europe, they're getting fined. The governments are getting fined because they don't know where to dump their waste. So we have technologies in our country, we don't even have to bring it all the way from China. They're waste to value, they're tire to value. That we currently, I'm very passionate about these technologies, and introducing them very traditional way through the delegation to countries that are welcoming us. So there's about 198 countries that they signed the climate change agreement, and they're welcoming these technologies, and so we're bringing together the governors and the mayors of their next delegation is happening in Philippines, and we've been talking with the Philippine government, and they're welcoming to see our waste recycling technology or tire recycling technologies, and we're talking to Kuwait and other countries to show them where it's coming. These technologies are coming from Silicon Valley or New York, so they don't have their Silicon Valley in these countries. So we're introducing them with these top cutting edge technologies that we have access to, and that's just a traditional way, and I'm moving forward to different countries, to Dubai and perhaps some other parts of Europe.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Are you looking at opportunities in Africa? I know we're going to be talking about that some tomorrow and the next day.
Very interesting. Africa, I don't have a lot of, I'm not very familiar with the areas, because I know there are a lot of political issues, but I think through blockchain perhaps we could influence and get involved. I think that's mainly to
I mean, I guess that's the point, is that this is new cryptocurrency. Does that allow us to sort of cut through the traditional barriers and then be able to implement the money directly? Is that how this is going to ultimately work?
You still have to abide with local regulations, of course. And one of the benefits of this compartmentalized cryptocurrency is that you can include local fiat currencies to get the banks and the operators who've got their own mobile money systems in place to feel included in this. At the moment, they feel threatened by cryptocurrency. And as a result of that, you know, the phrase "the choir" has been used earlier today. The cryptocurrency community is preaching to the choir the whole time. It's not breaking out into mainstream. And that's because certain players obviously control the mainstream: the banks, the operators, the regulators. And most cryptocurrencies are anonymous. You don't know who's sending it, what they're sending it for. And you need KYC. You need to have to know your customer. So these are all real-world applications, which I think is the second wave of cryptocurrency, which is moving on from your Bitcoin era. New logical and, you know, getting real applications of crypto are now emerging, like ours, for example. But we focus on mutual empowerment. You know, I can get what I want while depriving you of getting what you want. I can get what I want without caring whether you get what you want or not. But I can also get what I want in a way which automatically enables you to get what you want. That third way is obviously the conscious way. So we've got to bring consciousness into commerce. And I think something like this, where there's mutual empowerment built into the structure of the coin, where you can have baskets of coins. And as one coin improves in value, it automatically empowers all the other coins in the basket. That's how different projects and different communities around the world can empower each other, I think.
Interesting. It's like what Sally was saying earlier about the shift in consciousness, and maybe this cryptocurrency can really aid in that. You know, I've been researching it a little bit, and I know that some of the biggest players are actually, you know, dabbling in the cryptocurrency. I mean, Siemens right now is using the blockchain to develop a utility in Brooklyn as an experiment, and I know that major banks are buying interests in the various, you know, coins, et cetera. So. You know, I'm shifting over to Jim here for a second. I want to talk about, you know, Harry Kloor is going to join us tomorrow, and he's working on an extraordinary project called Avatar over at the, with Peter Diamandis, I believe, at the X Prize.
Yeah.
So let's see, now we have Earth X, we have Space X, we have ImpactX, we have X Prize. I think I'm just going to start a company called X.
X is X.
X energy.
But Jim, I know that you've been X Coin. Jim, what can you fill us in a little bit about what's happening before? I mean, I know Harry's going to talk a lot about it tomorrow, but
with his prize, or
well, just, you know, like how your involvement and
so
some of what's your interest over there?
Yeah, X Prize. I think people are familiar. The original X Prize was SpaceX. It's a way to put a prize out to incent people to develop new technologies, or basically new technologies. So it's focused on innovation. Chip's referring to one around avatars, which are related to virtual reality and augmented reality. So that's one that maybe we'll hear more about tomorrow. In the work that I've been doing with some people, we've also considered a prize approach to trying to draw new technologies out there. We're looking for people who have new technologies around the world. I've spent some time looking for them, trying to identify people to visit with them and understand what they have, vet what they have. Not sure what all the beeping is.
Yeah, hold on. Somebody's got something going off near a mic that's coming through the PA system that sounds like aliens to me. So can we all?
It's somebody's cell phone up here.
Yeah, so everybody's cell phones out and off.
So the prize approach is an interesting way to spur innovation, which, as I mentioned earlier, that's what I'm all about, and energy innovation in particular. So I and a group of people have given consideration to something like an X Prize to identify new potential sources of energy. And initially I set out with these other people to try and go find such things, but it turns out, the world's a big place and it's hard to find people who oftentimes frankly, are trying to kind of stay under the radar because what they're doing is oftentimes somewhat controversial or just something they want to protect in terms of the intellectual property. So, so the prize notion is one to maybe flip that around. Instead of us trying to find them, try to have them find us, and to identify themselves as having something interesting. The other part of this prize concept is, first of all, there's a prize. So obviously there's a financial reward if you win, and the money would then presumably go into supporting this new technology, which would be a great thing. But in addition, the other thing that you often struggle with these new technologies is just people even believing that they work. Some of them sound kind of fantastic or not believable. And so the value of this prize approach would be to have really recognized authorities or experts vet these technologies, say, yes, in fact, this one really does work. And at that point, it'll be much easier for them to raise other capital as well into their company. So I think all of that goes together, and it's something we're just currently investigating, but it looks like something that we definitely will pursue.
Cool. Well, I just think that it's an incredible opportunity ahead of us to use this kind of new thinking to solve the biggest problem that we'll probably ever face humanity, and that's the catastrophic collapse of our biosphere by the burning of these greenhouse gases. And maybe it's going to be through these devices that, like this, where how many are there on the planet now? 2 billion, maybe more, 3? And so half the population now has, a computer that is more powerful than we could ever have imagined when we first got our first, IP addresses back in the mid-90s, right? So things are moving that quickly, and that really is, gives us great hope when we think about things like the blockchain, like cryptocurrencies that can, sort of bring us together through the internet and put the power in the hands of the people. So I think I want to just sort of wrap this up with maybe some concluding remarks from each of you as you see us going forward from here. How does that really look to you, Hanieh?
My goal is to create a fund so we can go to pension plans, to endowments, to tell them that we have a plan that you should open your mandate for 2% impact investing to 10% impact investing. So we could use their funding. There are trillions of dollars. I was talking to New York Pension Fund, $157 billion. Their mandate for impact investing is only 2%. Why not 10%? Because there's still concern. There's still a lot of uncertainty whether clients or investors are going to lose money or not. So if we come up with the good funds that these endowments and pensions or huge institutions, wealth management can put under the platform, so financial advisors can start buying them for their clients, then that investment policy of the mandate of 2% from impact investing will go to 10% or perhaps 20%, and that way then we could be able to make better impact or more impact in the world. So that's my goal, whether it's through cryptocurrency, if we could create a fund that way and we could introduce them to these pension plans and endowments, it would be great.
Great, thank you. And Theo?
If you're a progressive, now is the time that we've got the tools available to reverse the model that's brought us to this dangerous point in time. The tools are available. Create your own currencies, support other people's currencies, use the currency model to raise funding for your project without giving away equity, but bringing in key people like this on board, of course. And just know the power that blockchain provides you as an individual, as a sovereign individual with your own sovereign currency.
Great. Jim?
I guess, is this working now? Or go back to this?
Yeah, I guess you're
this
on
is
that.
Better. Yeah, I guess the last thought is, as I've studied this whole problem, the scale of the transition that we're trying to cause to happen here, to go from fossil-based energy sources to renewable sources, the scale is so immense. It's really hard to even conceive of. And so the amount of energy used per year or per day, however you want to call it, and also noting that energy use, because many parts of the world are hoping to achieve something like the standard of living that we all take for granted, their energy use is continuing to ramp up. So this problem is so huge. And I just hope that people will keep their minds open to other solutions beyond wind and solar, which again are going to be really key, but we're going to need more. And it's driven by, once you go below the kind of the feel good of, you know, solar and wind are growing X percent, you know, oftentimes 50, 80%. That's off a small base trying to attack this mountain of a problem, and we're going to need more answers than just those. So I'm committed to working on those, and if anybody else wants to talk about it, I'd love to.
Great. Well, with that, and with 37 seconds and counting down remaining, we're going to end this panel a little ahead of schedule, try to get back on track. I want to thank all of you for coming out to the AREDAY and joining us and sharing your wisdom. Thanks a lot.